Okay.
Hang on, I'm not ready. I'm sorry.
Okay. Interview part 2. So, what do you believe is the place for technology in the classroom, and how do you feel about remote learning, especially in the kind of situation that we're in right now with COVID and everything?
So I think technology is a good tool to use in the classroom, but I don't think it needs to be forced.
Okay.
I think if it supplements a lesson, then you can put that in. But I feel like sometimes we try to force technology into our lessons because we have it, and that's not necessarily the case. Like for math, it's great, but a lot of math is pen and paper. They don't need to be typing on their computer.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that makes it a little hard with remote learning just because students at this age are so used to their technology, they're kind of glued to it and they rely on it for everything. So when it comes to remote learning, it's really important to express to them, even though you're on your computer, you still need to do this on a piece of paper, on Scratch, on something, just so that way they're really getting the concept. So I think as long as it's not forced into the lesson, it could be a good tool.
And you want to be able to see, the process of their thinking and going through the steps in case they miss something.
Exactly.
I know that can happen.
Versus just an answer in
Right.
a Google form or
Okay.
something like that.
Whoops. Okay. So why did you decide to become a teacher? Did anyone influence you to become a teacher? Anybody in your family, or did you just have someone that kind of stood out to you or influenced you during when you were going to school?
So I feel like sports played the biggest part in me becoming a teacher because I wanted to coach with it. But I also just enjoy, honestly, the school environment. Going through school, I really liked coming every day. I liked my teachers that invested in my life. They just felt like another role model for me to look up at. I had one teacher, Mrs. Leatherman, in high school. She was fantastic, and she was really the reason that I decided to become a teacher because of how much she believed in me and cheered me on. I just wanted to be able to do that for other kids because I know they need that role model. So hopefully I can be that for someone.
So on the other side of that, did you ever have a teacher that was not so inspiring, but also when you are in the classroom or when you are coaching, do you have that in your mind as a what not to do? Is there, because I know that that's happened to me, I mean, as an administrator, as a teacher, as a coach, having those moments, but is there a moment that you can remember, a person that you can remember on the flip side of that?
Yeah, I definitely had teachers. I say teachers. There's more of one teacher who you could do the smallest thing wrong and she would let you know. It was hard to get a compliment from her, a good job in anything. She really seemed like she didn't like her job. And so it made me dread going to that class every day. And I was like, I don't want to make my students feel like that. So
Right.
whatever she did to make me feel a certain way, I do the opposite. Or if I start to act like that, I try to remind myself what it felt like on the student side. Like, I didn't like the way that felt, so I don't need to do it to them. But I do keep that in mind so I'm not becoming that type of teacher that people dread going to their class.
Right. Okay. So tell me about, first, we'll do both. Tell me about your teaching philosophy, and then after that, we can go into what your coaching philosophy is.
So for my teaching philosophy, of course, I believe every student can learn, obviously. But I really, really try working on focusing outside of math with them. I understand they need to understand, the concepts and the teaks, but they're a person, they're not just a student. And so I try to go deeper into my relationship with them to where they can talk to me about other things. So like I'll try to go to my boys' football games, or I'll try to get invested with them just so they know I'm more than just a teacher. Like I truly care about their lives. Same thing with coaching. I think as long as somebody is coachable, I think that they're truly out there to get better. There are kids that want to be there, and I'm going to do my best to help them. Now, if there's a student or an athlete that is maybe, defiant, has an attitude, talking back, I have to realize, there's probably something else going on. It's not my relationship with them, there's something else. And so just kind of keeping in mind, hey, like, they have lives outside of school that you have to think about. You can't just think about whenever I see them for 52 minutes a day.
Right.
So,
So building relationships is something that is really important to us here in our campus, and I believe in our district, and so I'm glad to hear that you also feel that way, because we want to build relationships with our kids. They're with us more they, are with their parents sometimes when they're with us, especially the athletes are here.
Right.
We're here for a long time, but building those relationships, being invested in kids, not just the things that like math or not just the sport, but things that are important to them outside of school, because we want them to be, we want to help them be well-rounded individuals in society and be able to, not just have academic skills or not just have athletic skills, but looking at the whole student, the whole child, and hoping that they get better. But
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you also believe in that. What was the most rewarding part of attending your school? And it could be high school, university, where you went to college. And what was the most rewarding part of that college experience for you?
So the most rewarding part for college was obviously at the end, whenever I walked across the stage. I was the first in my family to graduate college. So that was easily the most rewarding. But what was really cool was seeing, I was a math major, was my math professors that were there, and like they knew who I was. They said congratulations, like they had invested in me. Even at that point, wherever, they have hundreds and hundreds of kids, they knew who I was and they told me congratulations, and just made me feel better because I knew they cared that I passed and I graduated, instead of just worrying about their job or how some college professors can be. So that was the most rewarding in college, was just getting that final accomplishment. I did it, I'm done, I was successful for me.
Okay. What do you want to be doing in 5 years? Like, where do you see yourself, like goals, or just where do you see yourself?
In 5 years, I will hopefully still be coaching. My passion is softball, so I would love
Okay.
to be coaching softball at some point, but my next passion is volleyball. And being at a middle school, I really like that, it's 3 different sports. It's volleyball, basketball, and track. While softball is not there, it's still something I feel like I can invest into. But my ultimate dream job is a softball coaching position at a really good school that I can build some athletes and move forward from there.
So would you want to move up to the high school level at some point, unless they eventually offer softball at this level? A lot of districts don't.
Right. I think based off my 1 year of experience at the middle school, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. So I thought I wanted to be a high school softball coach, but at this point I'm kind of enjoying middle school, so it's like a toss-up of where I would rather be. But I definitely want to still be in sports. I want to be a coach and just teaching math. I really like teaching so far, so that's where I'll probably want to stay. But I don't want to move around. I want to pick somewhere. I want to stay there. I'm tired of moving, so.
No, I hear you on that one. Yeah, I know. It's nice to find a spot where and sometimes it takes people time to find the place where they fit in. I don't think it's bad to, because I've done that. I mean, move around, and sometimes you have circumstances that take you where you have to go somewhere else, like personal things. But I think everywhere that I've ever been, I have gotten better. I may have had challenges, but I've learned something from every district, and every district has really good things that somebody else doesn't have, and maybe they have really bad ways of doing things that you go, oh, this is what we did here, we could try this here and make something better. So I think a lot of different people that will interview you, though, will look at you. If you've stayed in one place, they think that's great. And then sometimes people want someone that's maybe has been out there and been in different places. It just kind of depends on, like I said, like earlier in the earlier question about being at this campus and, finding the right fit of where you feel like you belong. But I think once you find that place, like, it's a great feeling, like when you know that you don't want to go anywhere else.
Right.
And I mean, that's a really great feeling. And I feel that way here. Like, I feel like, okay, I have my place. I have found my place.
Right.
And it is it's like a load off your shoulders when
You're finally settled.
when you're
good.
finally settled and you go, okay, this is it. This is the place. So what is one weakness that you find in yourself that you feel like you try to work on, and what are some ways that you work on that?
I definitely feel like I'll sometimes get frustrated whenever students don't understand a concept. So if I'm up, and, I do my lesson, we go through examples, and then I'll ask, hey, does anybody have any questions? Like, no, we're ready. And then they get the assignment, and they're like, I don't know what to do. So I definitely get frustrated with that just because math does come so easily to me. And I have to realize that it doesn't come easily to everybody. A lot of people struggle with it. So I kind of have to tell myself, like, take a deep breath, tell them to go back to their notes. Let's go look at what they specifically don't understand. So I'll ask them, I'll be like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you not understand? And usually they go, I don't know. And I said, okay, well, what do you know? So then they have to tell me what they do know, and then we go from there. It's definitely something I struggle with, but I'm getting better because some of these sweet little children are a little trying, but I am working on it and getting a little bit better, I think.
Okay. Well, what about some of the strengths you have, and how do you use those strengths to kind of balance out that weakness and some things that are kind of like the thing that you lean on for yourself?
So I would definitely say my knowledge of math. I mean, more than just having a math degree, I always enjoyed it going through school. So, you have those certain kids, they always want to know why something works. Why does it work? Why are we doing this? And I can back myself up really well. So I can tell them exactly why it works, how to go through a problem. And if they come up with another way, I'm like, well, you tell me why that works. And if they can explain it, then I'm like, okay, cool, perfect. I'm like, you can use that. But it definitely, I think it helps the kids kind of trust me a little bit more, because if I can explain my thinking and explain why it's right, they're like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. I can listen to her and go on. So I think that's one of my main strengths with the kids, is just kind of building that trust of, hey, I know what I'm talking about, I promise. And it relates well in the class, because I have, little tips and tricks here and there that are very successful for them. So.
Well, and I would say that we have a lot of really intelligent students, like just really smart students. And I think that, and it makes you a better teacher here, but I think it also, like what you said, being able to show them, they're going to ask why, and they're going to have a different way, like you said, they're probably going to have a different way to do the problem. But as long as you can show it, I mean, they'll be challenging with that. But once they see that you can provide them with some feedback on, how the problem works, how it works, and, the different ways to go through it, and then how it applies, like maybe later on in life, which you said,
Right.
looking at other ways that math is going to be applicable to them in a career or in college, what do they have to do? That is going to bring them in, and I think they'll come around. But I mean, they do want to know why. I mean, I
Yes.
think they want to know why in every class, but I think math can be challenging. But we do have a lot of really smart students.
Yeah, they want to know why it's important for them to know it, because a lot of times they're like, when am I going to use this? So I'll usually be like, well, what do you want to do? And even if they say something crazy like, oh, I want to be a football player, I'm like, okay, perfect. I'm like, so how much money do you want to make? And they're like, well,
Oh,
they'll
that's
tell
good.
me, and then I'm like, how much do you think rent is? So I bring that in. I'm like, you have numbers every day in your life, and that really gets a lot of them. Is I can tie math into every career you want. It doesn't matter. Like, you have to use math at some point. So that's
do.
been something really successful with them as well.
Okay, I like it. All right. Oh, here we go. So I guess obviously you said earlier that your favorite subject to teach was math. So what would be like a second subject that you'd be interested in? And this could be at the secondary level, at the high school level, because there's other options.
Right. I really liked history going through school. I find it so intriguing and so interesting. So if I was not able to teach math, I would really like to teach history, just because I love, going back and seeing what, people did before us and how we've changed. But I've just always found out it's one of the more interesting subjects, because like, it's just facts, which as math, you like facts. And that's all history is, but it's good stories and it's intriguing. So I really like that.
Well, and history is very factual too, but what I think is interesting about history is that there are so many different opinions about things, and people, when I taught history, I usually say you need to feel something in the room. Like
Right.
you need to have a reaction to what we're talking about, and to really understand it, because it does carry over into today. A lot
Right.
of things are just repeating itself in a kind of a different format, but really the feeling and everything that's happening is pretty similar. So, so it is good. I don't know if I could teach math. I'm not a math person. I'm an everyday kind of math person to exist in the world, but to try to go to math class would really probably cause me to have some kind of anxiety, I think. Okay.